Welcome to Sober.Coffee, a weekly coffee chat sharing experience, strength, and hope for anyone on the sober road to recovery. You can download Sober.Coffee weekly on all podcast platforms and check us out on Instagram at Sober.Coffee Podcast and on Twitter at Sober.Coffee Pod. To learn more about us and to help support these sessions, visit online at Sober.Coffee. Here are your hosts, two guys on their own path to recovery, Mike and Glenn. Let's join them at the coffee shop.
Hey, morning, Mike.
This party started out in the parking lot, man.
I know. We were just joking with Brian, our barista engineer, podcast barista.
Audiohive.com.
Yep, in Chicagoland. And, he was saying, hey, man, you guys should have like a hot mic. And I'm like, yeah, we got a hot mic, all right.
I got a hot mic.
Morning, Mikey, brother.
Good morning, man. How you doing?
Man, doing great. Ready to have some coffee? Let's see. I'm going to have 3 today, I think, or 5. I'm not sure. Let's set the bar high.
Yeah, let's start with 1.
I'm already 1 in, so.
Overachiever.
Mm-hmm. Exactly, man. So what are we doing today?
I don't know. We got, I loved your call last night where you said, hey, we've been getting some questions in the inbox and from folks that join us at the coffee shop. And I thought it was a good idea. Why don't we go through some of those questions that they had? And
yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, we have a podcast at Sober.Coffee is our show email, and we've got a bunch of questions. So thought we'd take let's do some rapid fire.
All right.
So let's just do. There's 4 that kind of stuck out, right? That we can tackle within one episode.
Well,
right?
we can tackle it the best we can. I want to remind our fellow participants.
Bring those disclosures out, right?
Bring the disclosures out. We are not professionals in any stretch.
This is just our story.
That's right.
This is just you and me in a coffee shop sharing our story, sharing our experience, strength, and hope with some of these questions.
But these were great questions because they're so applicable to anybody really in any structure, any part of their journey. But they're kind of bent towards the people that are kind of new to their journey. So, hopefully we can shed some light with our perspective on them.
All right, well, here's the first one. You ready?
Right, go.
Buckle up.
Yeah.
All right. I think you're right. Some of these are probably slanted more for professionals, but, hey, we're just going to share our story. Number 1, how do I know I'm an alcoholic?
When you fall out of the car. Wait, no. When you walk into a bar and they say you can have as many drinks as you want for $1, and I throw down $2 on the bar.
There you go.
Is that a sign?
Yeah, I think that's certainly a sign. So what do you think?
Well, there's a couple of things that jumped out of my mind. First of all, there are sites I know that I remember doing this back in the day. I remember doing this. There are sites where you can go and you can check off 10 questions that'll kind of give you a rated score. And for all the tests I failed in grade school, I certainly passed this test.
Right.
But,
so I actually saw those checklists, and this is honest, true story. First time I did the checklist, I checked off 8 out of the 10.
Okay.
And I was proud of myself. And I literally said, I'm not an alcoholic.
All right.
Because I thought you had to check off all 10. and then I was pointed out to me by a professional that if you have 1 out of the 10,
you're probably
an alcoholic.
So you again over-delivered.
So I was times 8 and thinking, and still thinking, hey, I don't have a problem.
Right.
It's just how I looked at things.
That's right. So, look, I just pulled it up on the phone.
Yep.
Let me just fire through a couple of them,
Yep.
okay? Would you describe yourself as a normal drinker, drinking about the same as everybody else?
Yeah.
Yeah, right. Sure you would. Now let's try it with honesty.
Right, yeah.
Yeah. Can you comfortably stop drinking after 1 or 2 drinks?
No.
What's the point?
Right.
Do your friends, family, or loved ones comment about your drinking?
Comment or yell? I don't think they commented, but
well,
yeah.
And in my case, it was the silent treatment.
Right.
There was no commenting. It was just, I'm not talking to you anymore.
Well,
do you sometimes struggle to remember what happened when you've been drinking?
yeah. Sometimes they call that blackouts, right?
Yeah. I have a hard time remembering how we introed this podcast.
Yeah, but that's from a mental issue. That's from an aging mental issue, not drinking.
Thank you. Are you able to stop drinking when you want to? Yeah, when the bottle's empty.
Yeah. Yeah, but then I had to drive to find the next bottle.
I don't mean to be taking these flippant. I've got a sarcastic response for each one of them. These are serious questions. Has your drinking ever caused you problems at school or work? Absolutely. For me. Do friends or relatives think of you as a normal drinker? Again, my humorous response is they don't think me as normal in any way. But no, I certainly wasn't a normal drinker. And that was just, they only saw the part I wanted them to see, right? Do you ever feel guilty about your drinking? Shame, guilt, remorse? Absolutely. Last two, has any family member or close to you sought help about your drinking? And, I know that people, over my career, I probably got 3 or 4 big books delivered to my nightstand. And,
wow, really?
Yeah, 3 or 4 ended up in the garbage. Yeah. Now the one I got, it's got some miles on it. And then lastly, has drinking ever created problems between you, your family, and your partner? And I would say yes to every one of those. Right. But the ones I didn't say is have you ever had a DUI? Because I deserved one, but I never had one. And the last one is have you ever been in jail? Right. I guess if you died, it's kind of hard to answer that question. But there are 3 yets that I don't have that are waiting for me. That's a great point because I don't, I didn't experience incarceration, but that doesn't mean I didn't deserve to. So I'd hate to make that a qualifier for somebody because that'll happen.
Well, again, what I was reminded is if you have one of those, you might want to start looking, right? So it's not all of them,
right?
And a key as I have gone through this and worked with others, it's an individual decision, right? It's not really somebody's. People ask me, Glenn, do you think I'm an alcoholic? And I'm like, it's not my place to declare you an alcoholic or not, right? So that's where we outline those questions. We look at behaviors and we look at consequences of drinking, and then we let them decide for themselves.
Right. But doesn't it come down to the question itself, Glenn? If I'm asking myself, am I an alcoholic?
I think.
I think if you're really earnestly asking yourself that question, I think you already know the answer.
Absolutely. And then there's some people who don't want that label. Right? They're like, oh, I don't want that label of being an alcoholic. In fact, I had somebody tell me early on, they're like, don't label yourself an alcoholic, right? That's a label you can never get rid of. And they were right.
Right.
I mean, I'm an alcoholic.
But do you care? Do you care if
today,
the world knows?
Today I do not.
No. Early on, I see that.
But I choked on it early on, right? But so take the label off of it, right? I didn't like how I acted. I didn't like blackouts. I didn't like hangovers. And there were times I was terrified with how much I was drinking. I mean, I was terrified. I was amazed and terrified at the impact and stronghold that alcohol had on my life. That was the driving factor of my life was, where am I going to get that next drink? And I really saw that, like you mentioned, I really saw that kicking gear when I ran out.
Right.
I mean, I went in panic mode.
Oh, sure.
I wanted booze more than I wanted oxygen. Yeah. It was absolutely crazy.
Right.
So, I would say to sum it up, probably without the checklist. I mean, the checklists are great, but the way I landed up looking at it is booze interfering, with how I want to live.
Right.
And absolutely was.
Right.
I mean, I had a vision for my life, and booze was, interfering.
Can I make one last suggestion?
Absolutely.
The big book of Alcoholics Anonymous is broken into 2 sections. The first 164 pages are the text to what you need to do to stay sober, right? But the last pages of the book, the second section, are a book of stories. And I don't know how many are in there or whatever. And but read, I would recommend, the stories and look for the similarities. And these are professed alcoholics. It's one resource. Today we got Google. You could probably get 1 million stories of people who have defined themselves as an alcoholic.
And YouTube.
And YouTube, right? Yeah, exactly. So, yeah, good question, though. Good question.
Yeah, so, that's great question. We got that several times. And, I also hear it in the rooms,
Okay.
But, a question I had to ask myself is, how long am I going to put up with this?
Right.
And I was going to death. So,
Right. Got it.
All right, question number one. All right, question number two. Ready for this one? This is this could be a touchy one.
Okay, go.
Can I drink non-alcoholic beer?
See your professional.
Okay, next question.
No. Okay, let's sit on that for a second. Right. That's
I'm not sure if the professional is the right dude to ask this question to.
right. You're thinking sponsor?
Well, I'm thinking sponsor.
I'm thinking other people
Yeah.
that are battling with alcoholism.
Yeah, I would say this is a great topic to discuss with your sponsor. Mm-hmm. But what was your experience?
Well,
Have you ever had a non-alcoholic beer in sobriety?
I did not in sobriety, but let me tell you that I did when I would make my feeble attempts at getting sober before Alcoholics Anonymous. I would try, to switch up my drinks. I try to change the times I drank during the day, where I drank, et cetera, et cetera.
That always works well.
Yeah, right. And so then I'd pick this up. I go, I'll just drink NA. I'll have 2 beers and then some NAs, or I'll have no beers and I'll just have some NAs. And it's like kissing your sister, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you've got the same experience of the taste without the impact or the behavioral challenges that typically followed me when I drank regular beer. But no, during my I was counseled that to not go there. Don't go halfway there, because halfway there is halfway closer to right.
So full transparency.
Yes.
In my sobriety, I have had a handful of non-alcoholic beers.
Okay.
And
you get no demerits for that, by the way.
and they make some really good ones.
Mm-hmm.
But and it was amazing because when I drank them, and my sponsor knew, and I drank for the effect, right? I drank to escape. When you drink a non-alcoholic beer, you don't escape. Mm-hmm. There's no escape, right? So I actually the handful of times I did, it was, I can remember one time I was cutting the grass, and I had this one non-alcoholic beer in my refrigerator, and it sat there for a month, and I'm like, this is the time, right? And I drank it, and it was refreshing in the moment. Mm-hmm. I had no desire for a second one.
Okay.
None. But what I've learned and what I've seen, and I don't drink them today, but what I've learned and what I've seen is that it's a slippery slope. Mm-hmm. It's a reminder of old ways, especially if you're out in a bar, you can drink a non-alcoholic beer in a bar, right? Then that's old ways, right? But the one thing for me, and it's just clicking now, is one of the reasons is I remember having one around my daughters once, and they gave me a look.
Sure.
And
where's he
like,
going?
Yeah, what in the world is going on, right? So, I mean, I would talk to your sponsor. I've made the decision, it has really no place. I mean, if I'm done cutting the grass, a lemonade tastes just as good.
But you hit on something really big, and that is if you're acting like you're drinking a beer in a chilled glass and with a lime in it, you're getting there. You're getting there. Glenn. Yeah. Can you have unprotected sex and count on your better judgment to pull out? Oh, I'm sorry. Did that just come out of my lips?
Yeah, no, I really think it did. But you know what it's like? It's acting as if, and I heard somebody say recently, because we got social media accounts and people comment on stuff, and they're like, hey, it's called non-alcoholic beer. Maybe that beer's for non-alcoholics. Right?
That's classic.
I mean, that was amazing. I'm like, dude, I've never heard it that way.
They branded, right.
Yeah, they're telling me, this is for non-alcoholics.
That's right.
Right? So, and at the end of the day, truth is, for most of them, there's a tiny bit of alcohol in these beers. Mm-hmm. 0.005 or 0.03 or something, right?
Tiny bit.
There's a tiny bit.
Some in there.
And frankly, if you drink 12 of them, it's probably like drinking a regular beer.
Right.
I mean, it is like drinking a regular beer. They do add up. But
I'm no mathematician, but that sounds right to me.
Something like that. So, hey, there's plenty of other great things to drink. They've got some really cool alcohol-free drinks out right now.
Right.
One is called water. It's...
But who would have thought when we were growing up that you'd actually buy that for $1.29 at the gas station?
I mean, man, I used to hit the water fountain at the gas station.
Out of the hose. Okay, let's shoot.
Okay, next one. Pretty easy one, but I think it's cool. There's some newcomers that are asking, what is the role of a meeting chairperson? So, for those that go to AA, what does an AA meeting chairperson do? What's their role?
He's the boss.
Okay, that's it.
No, not even close. Most important thing I think that a chairperson does is make sure that front door is open, and that applies to Zoom. They make sure the key's open. They're in the room. They're welcoming people. They are providing a venue, either digitally or physically, for people to come into the room and work on the recovery. Whether it's their first meeting or their 1,000th. It doesn't matter. I think that's an important role. But look, they are not the boss. They are, in my opinion, and in the opinion of everybody that surrounds me, they're just servants. They're there to facilitate, an effective 60-minute session.
Yeah, I think one key thing about meetings, at least the ones that I go to or we go to, they're really run not by the chairperson. No. They're run by group consensus. Right. Group conscience. So all a chairperson does, I mean, they rarely rule. Right. Make judgments or rule. When there's an issue in the room, they throw it out for group consensus or group conscience. Right. And they help keep order, Sometimes there are issues in meetings and the chairperson needs to, kind of handle those issues, right? But a lot, they handle them with group conscience.
Yeah. The thing that blows me away about Alcoholics Anonymous is its non-structure. I mean, it's baffling. I come from the business world where, there's structure and org charts.
Hierarchy.
But there's none of that here. No. This is just people getting together, and somebody needs to kind of facilitate the meeting.
Yep.
Okay, we're going to read this, then we're going to read that, and then we're going to open the floor for discussion, and then we're going to lock the door after 60 minutes. You need that facilitator, and I could just add this. It just jumped in my head. It's a great way to become sober. How's that? It was recommended for me to volunteer to take that servant position and chair, but that made me accountable to get to those meetings, right? So it helps the people in the room.
If you're chairing, you got to be at the meeting. You got to be there, right? You got
to be there.
So a lot of places, I know our club, they say, well, you got to have a year's sobriety. Have you heard that before? And why do they do that? And what do you think about that?
I think that's a meeting, but that's a club by club thing. Here's my opinion. I as I just mentioned, I think it's a great opportunity to serve. And in my humble opinion, I think anybody's qualified. If you have a desire to drink, you're part of our club, and you should be able to serve in that role.
Right. I think. So I have seen folks early in sobriety, and I'm not sure if a year's the right, but I think it's the decision made with your sponsor, right? Because I've seen people raise their hand, their sponsor knows nothing about it, and their sponsor doesn't recommend it, right? So that's not working the right program in my mind. But secondly is they don't have the sober maturity, or they don't have their own act together. Right? They can't get to places on time. And there was this one person, I mean, she just begged to do a meeting at 3 months. And 3 weeks later, she wasn't chair anymore because she didn't even have her own act together, right? To be able to show up on time. And then, hey, sometimes there's slants at meetings. Things go sideways,
right?
And you got to be able to handle that,
right?
You not take things personally. You just have to be able to. So I think there is some time that's needed for that.
Yeah.
But through these Zooms, we've had some folks with less than a year sobriety chair meetings, and it's worked very well,
right?
I think so.
So in this case, we didn't really
case by case.
Yeah, in this case, we didn't really answer the question, but we, at least shared our experience.
Right.
In some cases, maybe it's a good thing. I think what my walk away is: check with people. I love how you say you can't read your own label. Check with somebody else. Check with your sponsor. And if you don't know about that sponsor thing and you're listening in right now, we did an episode, a session on sponsorship. Check it out. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, and it's funny because it works the other way, too. I have two more thoughts. I had a sponsee, and I just thought it was a great serving opportunity and growth opportunity for him. And so I nudged him for 3 months. I nudged him.
Mm-hmm.
So now he's led a meeting for almost 3 years. I can't get him out of the chair.
Right.
And one of the things that I like to finish about the chairperson is, sometimes the best service work you can do is step aside and let somebody else do the service work. Give somebody else a chance. And I've got a guy right now. He's been been a chairperson for several years and he loves it, right? And I know somebody else wants to do it. I'm like, maybe your service work is stepping aside to give somebody else a chance.
Yeah, it's great.
So,
it's almost like it's like the preacher preaching a sermon, and I'm sitting there thinking, hey, he's preaching to me. Right there, you're preaching to me a little bit. I needed to hear that this morning. Thank you.
Yep.
All right, what's next?
All right, last question for this rapid fire Q&A session from our listeners. Stress. Right. What are some tips to dealing with stress and anxiety in early sobriety?
Well, first of all, let's unpack that.
So you're a professional.
Yeah, so you're a professional, certainly on the anxiety thing.
Right.
That is not something I'm afflicted with, anxiety, but yet I do think that life serves me up situations that stress me out on a consistent basis. So I'd like to kind of unbundle those two because anxiety could be a real deal, and in which case you need to seek professional help. But
maybe you need professional help just to define it.
That's right.
Right, because people use anxiety as, hey, just a stressful situation.
That's right.
Right.
And by the way, nowhere in AA does it say don't go to a professional and seek help. As a matter of fact, if you're looking at getting healthy and staying healthy, you should use, in my opinion, again, every possible resource that's available out there.
But I will jump in with my own experience.
Yes.
I totally agree with that. Mm-hmm. I think you got to approach that with honesty.
Yes.
And you have to approach it with your sponsor knowing,
right?
Everybody knowing.
Right.
Your doctor needs to know exactly what you're going through,
Sure.
because I put myself in those situations so many times where I'm manipulated. I'd put my suit on, I'd go in and look and act like a professional, like $1 million, and I got whatever I wanted.
That's
and what
right.
I wanted wasn't good for me.
Mm-hmm.
And only when I became honest with everybody, so my medical teams today, because I do use professionals, I have a professional dentist, I have a professional, shoulder guy. Everybody in my medical situations know that I'm an alcoholic, that I'm in sobriety, that I'm very focused on it. My sponsor knows, my wife knows, and I've been very successful with that world.
That's great. Yep, that's fantastic. So how do
stress?
So let's unbundle. Yeah, stress.
I'm stressed all of a sudden.
I know, right? I'm going to simplify it down, but it's the acceptance. For me, dealing with stress comes down to acceptance, accepting the situation as it is, accepting the person as they act, accepting where I'm at. I love the Serenity Prayer, Glenn. And
that's what I was thinking too.
Yeah, right. It's recited, but what's recited typically is God grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Most people have heard that prayer, but that's only the first quarter of it. The last 3 quarters, here I just pulled it up, living one day at a time, enjoying one moment at a time, accepting hardships as the pathway to peace, taking, as he did, the sinful world as it is, not as I would have it.
Boom.
Right? And then trusting that he will make all things right if I surrender to his will. We talk a lot about surrender here at Sober.Coffee. And so that I may have a reasonably happy, that I may be reasonably happy in this life and supremely happy with him forever and ever. Amen. That's the whole serenity prayer. But, for me,
I'm not sure if you need anything else.
I know, right? It's acceptance.
Really,
it really is.
That's amazing. So, hey, my sober life today, I still have stress. Mm-hmm. I just handle it differently. A couple things I do, and I'm really not kidding when I say, boom, that's it, right? Mm-hmm. But there's some action steps that I take when I hit stressful situations. Number one is awareness. I'm very keenly aware today what's going on, what my stress meter is. I rarely get surprised. I usually don't get hit by a tsunami wave. I'm very aware when things are swelling. And so one of the things I do is I remove myself from challenging situations. If I'm in a situation and I have the ability to remove myself, whether it's a discussion, an argument, hey, I'll take a break. Okay. I'll pull myself.
Physically and mentally.
Physically and mentally. The other day I was really challenging, call at work. At the end of that call, normally I would have gone to my little snack bar and eaten 4 chocolate bars. Uh-huh. And instead I said, you know what, guys, I'm taking a break. Right. I said, I'm getting off the Zoom call. I'll be back in 30 minutes. And I physically went outside and I took a walk for 30 minutes. Yeah. And it really changed things. It really did.
Yeah. No,
so that's a good tool.
Absolutely. Walk away, take a break. I love that. I like get your thoughts out of your head and get them on paper. Again, I always say that
some call that journaling.
Some call that chicks call it journaling. I call it creative writing.
Oh, there you go. Yeah, nice.
Real men eat quiche.
Right.
So to get it out of my head and put it down on paper. It's the old pros cons. Make a list.
The LT,
yeah, and that's very helpful because once it's on paper, it becomes smaller than the bigness that you made it made it in your head.
Right, and part of that is what that process does for me is it helps me analyze reality versus the trash that goes on inside my head, my perceptions, my fears, whatever that maybe not reality. A lot of times I'll get stress and quote unquote anxiety, and again, I think you need to define anxiety, but over stuff that's not going to happen. Right. Or didn't happen, and I saw it differently than reality. So, stepping away and helping journal it, write it down, helps to sort all that out.
Right. Or tap into a creative juice. Maybe writing's not your thing, but maybe you're a painter. Maybe, maybe you just want to make it.
I do paint by number.
I've seen your art.
That's why I need the numbers.
Even when you die, it's not going to be worth anything.
No, that's totally right. Totally right. So here's another thing that I do for stressful times, and I learned this in one of my detoxes, but it was an 8-day detox, and I can't tell you the mental pain that I was going through. It was on like day 2 or day 3, and I couldn't even lift my head off the table. It was just so bad. And this woman came in, and she did this guided meditation. And she comes in, and the lights went down in the room, and I actually put my head right on the table. And she walked through this guided meditation, and within 3 minutes, I was on some beautiful beach with the waves rolling, and she had the soft music, and I was out of my head and on this beach for 30 minutes. Now, at the end of 30 minutes, she turns the lights on, turns the music off, and stops the speaking. I was right back in my pain. But I had the opportunity to escape. Right. So I do that today. Go on YouTube and just search guided meditation. And there's hundreds of them. In fact, there's my favorite one to plug her, Michelle's Sanctuary. Okay. She does Cabin in the Woods. Okay. And you are in the snowfall, in the woods. You are nowhere in your own head anymore. Nice. So it helps a pause.
Yeah, we'll put that in the resource room. That's great. And the last thing that I had that came to my mind was immediately get out of yourself. And the best way to get out of myself is to get into somebody else's head. How can I help somebody? You know, and this goes well beyond how can I help another recovering alcoholic. This goes to how can I help my neighbor? Maybe their trash can's out at the end of the driveway and on trash day and needs to go back to the house. How can I go help somebody else? Pick up that phone that is my source of entertainment and see if I can engage with somebody and find out how they're doing.
Yeah, I love it. And my last one, I go to bed.
Yeah, right.
I mean, there are times, especially early in sobriety. I mean, I do it once in a while now, but early in sobriety, there were literally times I went to bed at 5 o'clock. I went to bed at 4:30. I went to bed at
5 a.m.?
No, not anymore.
Okay.
Not in sobriety. I went to bed at 5 p.m. just to finish my day. I had a stressful day. I was running out of tools. I was going through and the best solution in the moment, I said, you know what? I'm going to end my day at 5 p.m., and I am going to call this a win. I got through the day sober. Very challenging, stressful day. I made it sober, and I'm going to bed.
I love it.
All right, Chief. Hey, rapid fire.
Rapid fire. Good stuff. Hey, keep the questions coming.
Thank you for the questions. All right, again, it's podcast at Sober.Coffee.
Have a great day.
All right.
Thanks for joining us for today's coffee chat. To contact the show, email us at podcast@Sober.Coffee. If you need immediate help, the AA hotline is 800-839-1686. The National Suicide Prevention Hotline is 800-273-8255. Remember, Mike and Glenn are sharing their own journey on the path to recovery. Any suggestions, medical or otherwise, are their own experiences and should not be viewed as professional advice. See you next week, and remember, there is a solution.